Hey y'all, Melissa here at Twin Oaks Family Farm, rural Southeast Ohio, USA. It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, and got a busy day today, but was doing a morning check in the meat bird barn and actually just had to do some carcass management, some carcass disposal. That sounds kind of crude, but that's basically what it is in production agriculture with meat chickens. When we have a chicken die during production, before it's time to take the flock to butchering, we have the carcass to deal with. So we have to figure out what are we going to do with that. There are conditions under which, if the bird had just passed away and it's not a disease issue, it would be appropriate and okay to salvage the meat from that bird. In this case, the bird had been probably dead several hours before I got to the barn, past the point of it really being ideal to salvage the meat from it. So at that point, we have to deal with the carcass. So here, we deal with the carcass I prefer to deal with the carcass one of two ways: burying it or burning it. And it kind of depends on what time of year it is. So actually, just finished burying a chicken. The guys make fun of my little shovel, but that's my little shovel and it works for me. So just finished burying a chicken carcass from the current flock of meat chickens that we're raising. They're 36 days old. So I did a video about that specifically. Going to upload it on Thursday, October 10th. So you might want to catch that one. It's going to be called something like A Day in the Life of a Chicken Farmer. And you might want to go back if you haven't seen it and catch the video. These are not normal chickens, or this is not a normal chicken on our channel. I just uploaded it on Tuesday, October 8th. But this flock is in its last week of production. They're 36 days old today, and they will go to processing Monday, the 14th, when they are 41 days old. So I want to show you the flock because we've been on a routine of the production cycle for our meat chickens being about 6 weeks, as close as we could get to 6 weeks without going over. Well, we schedule that stuff, the processing of the chickens and the hatching of the chickens, like almost a year in advance. So for example, this flock I have right now that's going to go to processing on October 14th, that October 14th processing date was scheduled in December of 2023 for October of 2024. And then their hatching date was also scheduled either sometime in December or in January. So for October. So that's all been, set up before those chicks could even be incubating in eggs, So it's almost a year in advance. So we have to kind of know, for us, we have to kind of know how long are we going to raise the chickens from hatch to harvest, from the time we get them on farm to the time we're taking them to the processor. We got to know that ahead of time. We can't wait and see, well, how is the flock doing? And decide the day of. We don't have that flexibility. We have to plan it ahead of time. So we've been observing, like when we would have flocks that didn't hit right at 42 days, maybe they hit at 38 days, we were observing that they were ready. And we were observing that when we had a flock at like 42 days, usually by about day 36, 37, we were going, oh, we wish that processing date was a few days sooner. This flock is finished. These birds are ready to go. And so we, this year, kind of took a leap on that. Like, could we have a flock ready in 35 days? Well, as it happened, and as things will happen, the very flock we did that with had some really unexpected incidents happen that affected that flock's affected that flock's growth pattern, affected that flock's appetite pattern. So as it turned out, when those birds got to 35 days, they were much smaller than we wanted because of those disruptions in their production cycle. But here's an example of what we typically see. So these birds are 36 days old. And as far as I'm concerned, I would be happy taking them to processor at any point. They are what we would consider finished. Now, it's okay that they have several more days. This is a Wednesday. This flock is actually going to the processor on this very next Monday coming up. But they would be okay to go now. But they're still going to continue to fill out between now and Monday and be much bigger. So that's okay. As long as they make it to Monday. And so, you know, you just saw where I buried one. That's the real balancing act with meat chickens, is maximizing growth potential, which includes them attaining their skeletal size and them converting feed into meat and distributing it to the chicken breast, the drumsticks, and the thighs. So, you know, maximizing growth potential, but also minimizing flock loss, because things that can happen with meat chickens include different kinds of sudden death syndrome incidents that could be from heart failure, but that could also be from a problem with a suffocation risk. And let me show you what could lead to that. See this bird here, propped on its side with its left leg stretched out, the one closest to us. I'll try to zoom in on him. So this rooster here. So the way he's sitting, if he would stretch that leg out, oh, which there he goes, if he would happen to like roll back the littlest bit and lose his balance and flip over on his back, he would need somebody to rescue him. He would need someone to set him back upright, like into that posture. Because if a bird gets flipped over on their back, they don't have a way to turn back over upright, kind of like a turtle. So, you know, with lighter bodied birds, they hardly ever lose their balance and get flipped over on their back. With these heavier bodied birds, they can lose their balance and get flipped over on their back. And when they do, if they just lay there with their head laid back, it closes off their airway, it cuts off their breathing, and they end up with a suffocation incident. So we don't want that to happen, but, you know, we're not necessarily in the barn 24 hours a day. So if that would happen while we're not in the barn and they tire of holding their head up to keep their breathing airway open, then they're going to end up suffocating. That's honestly what I believe happened to that one I had to bury this morning. Now, in the incident of like a heart failure, it tends to be thought of as a sudden death when it's heart failure as well, but something we've observed, a little breeze is blowing through, so they're showing a little reactivity to that. So something we've observed with birds that end up experiencing heart failure is that they do show symptoms. There's about 3 telltale symptoms. They tend to show them for 1 to 3 days as the imminent heart failure runs its course. So when you observe heart failure in a bird, you know, you could go ahead and cull that bird. Cull means to dispatch or end their life as humanely as possible. Oftentimes, if that bird is still able to move around and not getting trampled by the rest of the flock, we'll go ahead and let that bird that's experiencing heart failure, we'll just let it run its natural course. Here's an example of a bird that's too small. So that's a little hen. She's the same age as everybody else. For some reason, she's not having she's not showing the uniformity of growth with the rest of the flock. So she may fill out well in the next 4 or 5 days, but she may not. So, you know, we'll get to that juncture when we get to processing day. But for all practical purposes, all the birds that you're raising for meat production, the intention is when it gets to processing day, they're going to be butchered, okay? So if you're butchering them yourself, then you're going to just do that, you know, at your own facility, with your own supplies, with your own manpower. In our case, we're going to load the birds into the transport crates. About 8 adult birds fit in those transport crates at a time, and we're going to haul them safely to a USDA inspected processor to have them butchered and have them. This flock, for the most part, I'd say we're going to process into boneless, skinless chicken breast. That's going to cause us to have all the wings from the flock, and then that's going to allow us to make a custom order with the thighs and the drumsticks. So a lot of those thighs and drumsticks will be deboned, turned into ground chicken, and some will be formed into patties, and some will be left just ground chicken, you know, put into town packages. With some of those thighs and drumsticks, we could have them packaged up like packages of 4 drumsticks or packages of 4 bone-in skin-on thighs. And in the thighs, we can customize those to bone-in skin-on thighs or boneless, skinless thighs. So, and the chicken breasts will all be boneless, skinless. So this is the meat birds at 36 days old. This flock really looks good. They will have consumed about 4,000 pounds of feed. When the feed that's in the feeders is consumed, and we have 2 more 50-pound bags of feed to add in, when all that feed is eaten up, they will have consumed 4,000 pounds of feed, and that's right on track for what we have found in our production system that it takes to start, grow, and finish meat birds is let me break it down per bird. That's what we've found it takes to start, grow, and finish meat birds successfully is on average per bird about 10 pounds of 22% protein complete feed for meat birds start to finish. So it takes about 10 pounds of feed average per bird. And if we left the birds whole chickens when we took them to the processor at the end of 6 weeks, we would expect to end up with anywhere from 4.5 pound to 6 pound whole chickens in the freezer after they're processed, okay? And so some of that range in weight is accounted for because we have a straight run flock where there are males and there are females. So the males tend to grow a little faster and be a little heavier, you know, at the same point in the process as the females. So there's a hen going to that water right there. And in this group, the one standing up is a rooster. Actually, there's several roosters right there together. Where you see the prominent red combs and wattles, those are roosters. And then the hens maintain a less prominent coloring on their combs and less prominence just in the size of the comb as well. Like there's a hen and there's a rooster. So thanks for joining us at Twin Oaks Family Farm. Just wanted to let y'all see the meat birds right at 5 weeks old. We'll keep you posted day to day, and try to catch those other videos and look for the one on Thursday.